Daydreaming, my only escape from life when I was young. This vlog might be odd, not my usuals, for this is personal. So personal that only a few trusted people knows about it. For more than a decade, I've tried to conceal, don't feel, don't let it go. Yes, like Elsa from Frozen. And finally, I found the guts to share it now. This is about my dark past that has rooted inside me, that whenever I encounter a dilemma that seems all too familiar, it triggers, it comes back bubbling up, and oh boy, the actions and the words. They can really hurt the people that I love. And not because I wanted to hurt them, but because it was my way of defending myself. Because back then, I was not able to do that. Apart from growing up in a domestically violent home, I also grew up living with men that were supposed to protect me, but instead took advantage of me. This is me in a low-key approach saying that I'm one of those helpless, abused, hurt, and unheard little girls that you see on the news. I grew up believing that it is normal for fathers to beat up mothers, that drugs is a normal thing that adults do, just like smoking, and that separation of families is nothing new. Because I saw it not just in my own family, but from my neighbors, my friends, like it's just the way it is. Since the day I was born, our life was already in a downward spiral. Both my parents were into gangs and riots and drugs. My mom at the age of 18 gave birth to me. I grew up in the care of both my grandparents. They provided for everything because my parents are too busy doing their own thing. I also suffered from having weak lungs and dyslexia, and my mom told me this story that once upon a time I need to have this checkup with my pediatrician and to buy some meds. And my father and my mother were supposed to bring me there. They have the money in their hands for everything, but they bought drugs with it instead. They tagged me along to do their transaction and then went home, and they told my grandparents that I'm all good and healthy, nothing to worry about, which was a total lie. One day, my mom decided that she has to break free from my father's mental, emotional, and physical abuse. After so many failed attempts, she finally decided that going to a different city might be the best plan, so that my father couldn't follow and track her down. For her to be able to do that, she had to leave me with my grandparents. After a few years, my mom was in a relationship. They lived together, and when she was maybe financially capable to take care of me, she took me with her. I remember it was a rainy evening, and leaving my grandparents was so hard. I was silently weeping in the car on the way to the bus terminal. This new home was awkward at first. There was this man that I've never seen before, and my mom told me that he's my new dad. This man is not entirely a bad person. I mean, he taught me things, and I'm grateful to know discipline, responsibility, but I've always felt unsafe being alone with this man, and my inkling was right. One school morning, I was in the bathroom to prepare for school, and This man, he yelled angrily because I was too slow and that I'll be late for school. So what he did, he stormed into the bathroom, aggressively bathed me, and roughly rubbed his fingers between my thighs. And I knew very well that what he did was wrong. My mom could be reckless and irresponsible, but one thing I do admire about her is how she have always protected me by talking to me like an adult, even at a very young age. She prepared me for scenarios like this because she knew very well that there are men out there who would take advantage of little helpless girls. And so, of course, I told my mom and one of my aunts immediately. And I remember they were in my grandparents' kitchen, and my mom and two of my aunts, my grandma and grandpa, they were discussing about what I reported, what had happened. And I really thought that I was doing the right thing. But when one of my aunts said that Kriska is just a kid, how sure are you that she's telling the truth? She could have just made up that story. You see, discussions like this are not talked about in the family table. It is a very taboo, very censored topic. You shouldn't say or mention anything that involves sex because you just don't. No questions asked. I was not able to defend myself that time. I just lowered my head and I knew that they didn't believe me and no one is going to save me. It happened a few times, but I'm really glad that it did not progress from there. They broke up eventually after 7 years. Imagine the fear I have every day and every time I am alone with that man. It was such a relief. But not long after, my mom was in another relationship again. She was working abroad that time and she called through the phone, and I can remember vividly that she kind of asked for my permission, but there's really nothing I can do. So yeah, another daddy, and I was not thrilled at all. So this new daddy, I met him first when I was 12 years old. When I graduated grade school, my mom went back to the Philippines and lived with a new guy, and she asked me if I wanted to be with her. Well, of course I wanted to be with her, but her alone. But again, what can I do? And this new guy, he was like a businessman in the entertainment industry. They worked together with my mom, because my mom was in a band, she was the singer. And like in almost everything, the beginnings are always nice. But once you get to live with the person and know the person, all the facade and the pretension, it wouldn't last. So this guy, he would buy me clothes. He said that he would make me a model and that he's got friends that he can contact to introduce me to. And to be honest, I dreamt of the thought. I was so naive. So he would hand me these new clothes and I would change behind the closet. But he would insist that I should just change right there in front of him. It was so uncomfortable. I mean, I really didn't glow up yet during my first year in high school, but still. And that was the first sign. I can't tell you how many times this man tried to peep through my door, the bathroom, the windows, watching me change or clean myself. How many times he tried to touch my privates while I was asleep. If I was afraid being alone with the first quote-unquote daddy, this one is a whole new level of fear. And you might be thinking like, why didn't you ask for help? Why didn't you say anything? I tried it the first time, remember? All this time, my only safe place was when I was alone in my dark room, talking, journaling, doing art, crying and wailing and pleading to God. But that time I only know a little bit of who God is. I was taught that God is a God who punishes when you sin. So I carried that thought, believing that this must be a punishment from God. Why else would He allow this to happen to me? I was so full of hate, shame, and hurt, and guilt, and I wanted to die, and I wanted to kill the guy. I wanted to kill myself and just get it over with. I was thinking that people wouldn't care anyway. I am alone, that I have nobody and nobody cares and nobody loves me. I got into college and I looked like a normal kid. And despite being academically poor during my grade school, I excelled in class and my teachers loved me, and I would represent my school to do competitions. I was a scholar. I get academic awards in my college years. I seemed like a happy normal teenager, but that was all a front. I hated the spotlight. I take compliments as insult, and I would relieve my traumatic experiences, so I isolate myself. I cursed marriage, I cursed men, and I swore to never marry. I shut the people out, and faking it till I make it, to I don't even know where. My mom and the guy, they broke up after 8 years. And I thought that this is it, I am finally free. But I was still the same. Just covering it up with good grades and extracurricular achievements. Things that made me feel good, like I'm worthy, like I'm good enough, and I'm loved. Only when a friend of mine invited me in her little group that everything slowly and also kind of abruptly changed. They talked about a God that was so different from the God that I knew. They talked about a loving, caring, forgiving, self-sacrificing God like it's a fairy tale. I couldn't understand it, but I liked what I heard. And I wanted to hear more about this God. I was seeking more of this, whoever this God is. I went to their church and it was a total culture shock. I always go with my grandparents in a Catholic church, and this church was way different. The day came when I finally accepted Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. 2 Corinthians 5 says, "Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old has passed away, and behold, the new has come." But it was not easy. More than a decade on fixating on what was untrue destroyed my mental state. It was not like a computer that you can just reformat. No. There was a process of sanctification. I had to die from my old habits every day. I had to surrender every day. I had to submit to God every day. And I had to renew my mind every day. And every day I had to make the decision that Jesus is the truth, the way, the light, and the life. And even today, there are little things that would trigger me. Like when my husband laughs at my mistakes and throws a joke at me. It would upset me so bad that I literally would say really awful things to him that I know would upset him too. And I'm just glad that my husband always decides to be the leader and understands where I am and where I'm coming from. He would remind me that I am not that person anymore. We became accountable for each other. Jesus is not a quick fix like what most people would think. But I found tremendous relief by reminding myself to only focus on God's promise, His words, and the identity that He has given me. God said to fix your thoughts on what is true on Philippians 4 verse 8. And though my past was a dark place, God redeemed me and gave back what those men stole from me, and made me pure, not in my eyes, nor in other people's eyes, but in God's eyes, which matters the most. Look at me now. I don't have the perfect life, no, but I am married, the thing that I've cursed in the beginning, and I'm married to a man who is also from a broken family and also a testimony of God's redemption. We have a lovely boy, and I am in this great nation called Australia, studying commercial cookery and currently taking my master's degree. In my relationship with my mom and father, it was restored. My mom is now happily married to a man that really takes good care of her. And my father is in a better condition and in the process of healing from drug addiction. By His stripes, I am healed, and I've learned to let go. God tore my walls down, and though that was a really hard time, like going through a crucible, it was all worth it. It made me a tougher person, mentally, emotionally, and now I have the boldness and God-given strength to share this story that I've been hiding my whole life, putting it all into the light. And please don't feel sorry nor pity. God changes evil into good. In Romans 8:28, and we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to His purpose. I can use my past to encourage women like me, inspire them, and show them that there is a way, that they are worthy, they are not forgotten. You are loved, you are pure, you're precious, and you're constantly in God's thoughts. And I really love this phrase that one of my mentors told me, that a life that is within the will of Jesus Christ is not a storm-free life, but a storm-proof life. If you're still listening up to this very minute, I really want to thank you for your patience. And I hope that this real story has encouraged you and you have learned something. I'll see you again in my next video.